Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Well, really depends on the place of the world you are today. Welcome to One Coffee with Kavanah, where we explore the ideas, the journeys, and the stories that give meaning to who we are as individuals or as a global community. Today's guest is someone who has transformed a very simple passion, really passion, into a cultural force. So, welcome to David Wiseman, the founder of Follow Team Israel, a Facebook and Instagram page dedicated to sharing Israeli and Jewish sports globally. He's member of President Herzog's Voice of the People. His writing has appeared in the Jerusalem Post, the Forward, the Times of Israel. So you can see I have a really famous guy just in front of me. I'm amazed. So a digital brander, senior Wikipedia editor, and I can tell you much more. But let me talk with David. I mean, he's the guy here. So David, welcome to today's episode of One Coffee with Kavanah. And today we will dive deep into how sports become narrative, how community becomes a strength, and how this platform is growing, and into a global movement reaching millions. So, welcome to the show, David. It's my privilege to have you here. Let's begin. Hello.
Thank you, Roberto, and thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, well, so do I. So, Follow Team reframes global conversation away from conflict and toward human stories that highlight Jewish identity and resilience. Let me go to my first idea. When the world often associates Israel with conflict, why do you believe sports is one of the last spaces where positive narratives can still flourish?
I mean, it's an interesting question. Unfortunately, also, negativity in terms of boycotts and whatnot and protests can also take place. But I think when people, have a good heart and a kind heart, and they see that, okay, here's a competitor from one country, here's a competitor from another country, they're doing their best. Sport has the ability to sort of like create storylines that, other areas are unable to. And sport can connect with people universally. It's its own language. So I think that's why and how it's able to do that.
Okay. And what do you think about if there's an emotional shift? If you look in an athlete's story replaces headlines of hate with pride and inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Israel wants nothing more than just to be, a good neighbor on the international stage with every other country. And sport is one of the ways in which, it can do that. Israel has been going to the Summer Olympics since 1952 in Helsinki, Finland. The state was created too close before the 1948 games to allow Israel to attend there, but 1952 was the first one, and they only won their first gold medal at Athens in 2004, and that was an incredible amount of pride and joy for the country. And the thing is that even though we won a medal in windsurfing, everyone suddenly loved windsurfing, and that's what people connected to. They didn't matter to them whether they sort of knew about the sport or whatnot. They just sort of gravitated to the fact that Israel was sort of representing itself on the world stage, and that's what sport does. It allows Israelis to sort of say, like, we're here, our country is on the map, and this is what we're doing.
And do you view Follow Team Israel as Vara, as an identity building, or something completely different?
No, I definitely do see it that way. and especially in the face of when so much of Hasbara fails. So let me elaborate that. This is one of
Yes.
the very few pages that has content about Israel that isn't political, right? And so, like I touched on before, when sport even gravitates into that political area, that's not what we focus on, right? So we just focus on the positive, the stories of the athletes and how they're doing. And so the thing is that when we show our competitors from all over the world competing there, and it doesn't matter what sport they're in, whether they're male or female, able-bodied or non-able-bodied, that brings people with joy and it inspires them. And the thing is, we're not sort of like ESPN or some sports channel in that regard. We're not focusing on the sports results. We're focusing on the stories of the athletes. And so people can connect with someone to say like, oh, this person's a fencer or this person does Taekwondo, even if they don't have the slightest understanding or knowledge or care of that specific sport. That's not what they're interested in. They're just interested in seeing this athlete do their best. And that's what inspires them. So, the answer is very much yes. And also one of the things about, sharing the stories of our athletes as they compete all over the world, right? If we've got like a Israeli team competing in, Santiago, let's say, the local Jewish community can come and support them, which is just wonderful. It gives the athlete that love and support that they feel that they're not alone. And then on the other end, the fans have got someone to support and cheer on. So it's just great. And one of the things that the page loves to do is to create that connection between the athletes and the fans.
That's great. I mean, let me go to global community. This was a very small initiative years ago. Whole Team Israel has grown into a global community. And I will tell you, the audience, reaching 12 million people and gaining 83,000 followers without any paid advertising. That's amazing. How did this page evolve from a passion project into a worldwide community?
So that's another great question. So the page actually started in 2012, just ahead of the London Olympics. I did it with a friend from Canada. And it basically came because, one of the things about the Olympics, which isn't just to Israel, it's around the whole world, let's say.
Yes.
Is that normally now, people are very much into football and basketball, like they're the main sports. And if you were in America, like baseball or ice hockey or whatever.
Correct.
Now, no one's speaking about weightlifting and no one's speaking about wrestling and no one's speaking about archery and no one's really talking about, equestrian and all these sports. You don't see these on the news or whatever or in the newspaper. And then 2 weeks before the Olympics, the media is like, look who we've got. We've got weightlifters and we've got fencers and we've got archers. And suddenly they make a big deal about these athletes. They cover them at the Olympics and then that's it, back to football, basketball and all that. And so the thing is with this page, we were like, wait, hold on. We can share something all the time. We can share about fencing now. Just because it's not the Olympics doesn't make it any less sort of noteworthy or wonderful. And so I think that's the first thing, that we're sharing these stories, all the time. And so basically, after 5 years, the Facebook page only had 5,000 followers or 5,500 followers. And I was like, oh, what's with this and where's it going? And little did I know that 6 weeks later, we would have our first piece of viral content. And so what was it 6 weeks later? You would never guess and never imagine that of all things, it was the 2018 Winter Olympics. And so we had a video of an Israeli ice skater competing at those Olympics. And even though the page only had 5,000 or 5,500 followers, this piece of content was liked 6,000 times. And it was, I think, shared just as many times. And I said our first 5,000 followers took 5 years. Our second 5,000 followers took 2 days. And basically, it was on its way then. And I think, we were growing steadily. And then I think 2023, we were experiencing a lot of growth. And then after October 7th, I think people also were specifically looking for content about Israel that wasn't to do with the war, that wasn't political and all that. And I think that, like I said, this is like social media in its purest form. Like if I say, hey, we've got a tennis player that you didn't know about, they've got a great story. Some of the ones that come to mind is a female Indian rugby player, which is great. Another story is I remember is 5 like women in their 40s. Together they swam the English Channel from France to England. They did it in bits together, which was an amazing story. And even now, I still get these people contacting me or finding out things that just amazes me. So just last week, for the first time, someone said they were in Cyprus representing Israel in an international fishing competition. So basically, they were out there in the water and seeing who got the biggest fish, the most fish, and you're like, it's just incredible to see all the different sports in which our athletes are competing. Yesterday, I just posted about an Israeli couple who actually won the World Parasport Dancing competition. And what that means is that the man is like able-bodied, he can dance fine, he can stand and all that. But the woman, she's in a wheelchair. And so he's dancing with her, pushing her, and sometimes he picks her up and swings her around while the chair is still attached to her. So things like that, it's just crazy. And, the thing is we live in a very sort of like polarized society, right? Where it's sort of like, well, if I like football, I like my team and your team's bad. Or I like football and you like tennis and tennis is bad, right? But what we're saying is, listen, everything's great. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you love what you do and you're doing it. We want to be inspired by your story. And I think that's what people connects to people. And the thing is, Roberto, it's not just the amount of followers. It's also the fact that the amount of engagement on the posts is also not typical, right? So what happens is that someone sees something and then they're so excited by it, they want to share it to their network. So we also get like a very high level of engagement on our content as well.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, especially the way you were growing. I mean, it's an amazing story. And do you think followers are truly looking for information, connection, belonging, identity, or they're going for something deeper?
No, I think it's all of the above. I think they're looking for all of that, and I think I'm in Israel. And so I can take a lot of things for granted, like my Jewish identity and not having to be scared. But I think, again, as I've touched on October 7th a number of times, I've been speaking, I think that, Jews all over the world, they feel a little bit isolated. And their Jewish identity and their Jewish pride may have somewhat been compromised since then. And so when they see like, someone representing Israel or someone being Jewish and doing something and they're swimming or they're running or whatever it is they're doing, it really fills them up with pride and helps them. It gives them like a boost where they're like, I'm not alone. And also an interesting thing, Roberto, is that we want people to know if they're Jewish and around the world and if they like tennis or if they like American football or if they like rugby, to know that coming to Israel, if they made Aliyah, isn't the end of their sporting career. It might only be the beginning. And I can't imagine what it's like for a person who loves sport and loves Israel to make Aliyah and then represent Israel in their sport. And I've spoken to many people who've been privileged to do this, and they're just over the moon, and it feels so much to them. And actually on this last Yom Ha'atzmaut, we did a post on a female footballer. And what's unique about her is that she's actually played international football for 2 countries. She played firstly for the Dominican Republic, and now she plays for Israel. And I asked her, and so because her dad was from the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
and she's Jewish, right? So she can do that. Anyhow, I asked her and I said, is there a difference between playing for Dominican Republic and in Israel? And she said, you know, playing for Dominican Republic is fine and, very special and amazing for me to connect to that side of my family and my heritage. But then she said, David, I have to be honest with you, with no disrespect, it really can't compare to representing Israel. Because the thing is, when you're representing Israel in sport, again, like if I'm representing Japan, let's say in tennis, I'm a good tennis player and I happen to be Japanese and, great, I've like reached the pinnacle of this. But I'm not thinking, well, what did Japan have to do to even exist as a country, right? But for Israel, we think like so much had to happen just for us to be here that I could represent this country in my sport, right? And people still want to take it off the map. And so it means so much to them, and it's very interesting when I say off the map, because of course, obviously, that
Sure.
whole saying about Israel being on the map came from one of Israel's most famous ever sporting accomplishments, that Tal Brody said at when they defeated CSK Moscow in the Euro Cup.
Wow, I mean, it's amazing. And let me go and go a little deeper on this one, because we were talking about all these details and all these issues and these facts, and what I like a lot it's that you give visibility to all athletes, not just the stars. So you highlight everyone, Olympians, some niche sports participants, the Deaf Olympics, and even unexpected teams like the one you mentioned, the competitive fishing in Cyprus, and also the winter. I mean, I know that even though in Israel it does not really snow, that you have or we have people going to Winter Olympics. Um, why did you choose to represent all these people instead of just focusing on well-known names? You're making a difference there.
That's a great question. So the thing is, we do also report on the well-known names like Denny Avdia is having a great season currently with Portland, and when we have like top level footballers, let's say, so we don't ignore them. Like we still report on them. But the thing is, what we wanted to let people know is that listen, like the media feel they have to sort of be on the big names all the time. The Maradona, the Pele, the Federer, the Tiger Woods, right? That's what they need, right? But the thing is that if that's all you're reporting on, then you run out of things to say after a while, right? And, it gets boring, right? If like Roger Federer wins and then he wins and then he wins, right? It's very boring. If you started talking about people that no one knew, then they're like, it's exciting. But I think Roberto, what it taps into is what's the biggest Jewish sport in the world? It's Jewish geography. You know what this game is? Jewish geography will be like, oh, you meet someone from New York and you say like, oh, do you know this guy? And do you know that guy? And, this is
Yeah,
what
you are
Jewish,
right. Yeah, we are expert on
that's
that all around the world.
right. So this taps into that, like, oh, Jewish person playing, some sport in some country. Who do I know there? Who do I know who plays the sport? Like, we love finding out stories of other Jewish Israeli people and what they do. And I think that it taps into it. And so the fact that, this is a person they don't know, they've never heard about them, it's like interesting for them and exciting. And like I said, for me, it's also good if kids see it through their like parents or whatever, because I'm not sure how many kids are on Facebook, that like to inspire them, that they know like don't give up, keep going, keep trying, like you can do this as well. And so I think that's, to answer your question, that's where the better stories are.
Yes, sure. And let me go again, a little deeper. Any way that you can share a story from really a lesser unknown athlete that deeply moved you?
Well, like I touched on before, there was the rugby player, and she was a female rugby player. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Bend It Like Beckham, but
Yeah, no, yeah.
she was like a real life story. So anyhow, when she grew up in India, she wasn't allowed. She wanted to do like boxing and UFC, and she wasn't allowed to do mixed martial arts, and she wasn't allowed to do combat sport. Anyhow, so she did track and field running. When her family made Aliyah, she then started doing the combat sports, but then she realized it was a little bit too rough for her, and she didn't like getting hit in the face. Anyhow, by this chance, she discovered that there was rugby in Jerusalem, and she like went to it, and she just started playing it and loved it. And the thing about rugby is that all sports have a community feel, right? So if like I like water polo and you like water polo and we play water polo together, then we're just gonna become friends, and there's going to be this water polo network. But this seems to be even far greater with rugby, and it's well known for this rugby spirit. And so she just sort of fell into this rugby spirit and just loved it so much, not just playing the game itself, but all the community aspects away from the game. And so for her, that was just terrific. In terms of other stories, I mean, I did a great story on the Israeli lacrosse team. So lacrosse, which is actually going to try and lacrosse is going to be at the next Olympics, and Israel's trying to qualify. But the Israeli lacrosse team has three sisters on it. So it was just an incredible story to think that three members of this family all were playing for Israel together, and how special that must have been, as I touched on before, but for the three of them to share this experience. If they had one member of the family playing, that would have been nice. But the fact that they were doing this together, just very nice. So that's another one that sort of sat with me.
Wow. Any criteria that you use to choose the stories, or especially when you are representing such a broad and diverse athletes landscape, or it's open?
So it is open. Like everyone belongs on the page, and I have to tell you, it's not just the for athletes. It could be, like I said, anything to do with sport. So it could be a coach, it could be media, it could be fan, it could be someone who works in sport, right? It could just, as long as you have something to do with sport and the story has to do with sport, we'll write about it. But in terms of criteria, really, I'm working in a visual medium, right? And the picture tells the story. So if someone says to me like, oh, someone did this, they won karate in Poland and da da da, but there's no picture and there's no video, I can't post that. That's going to be the problem. And you see that people really connect with the pictures, and so that's also very special. And we need good pictures or video to tell the story. And one of the things that never ever fails is like when someone's won gold and Hatikva's being played. You can never hear that enough times.
Wow. Okay. Let me go to the reality. Let me go, and I will move to politics, protests around the world. And today, Israeli athletes are facing unique challenges, especially from political problems abroad to low funding, especially in winter sports and less snow categories. What is the hardest challenge for Israeli athletes today?
So, I mean, your question touches on many of them, financing, and again, like a lot of the sports they play, the Olympic sports, there isn't a lot of money in them, right? So if I want to be a runner, a 100-meter runner, I basically, and now that sports for the most part is professional, I have to support myself, go to competitions and tournaments and win money, and hopefully from the money I get endorsements. So that's one element. The second element is obviously like security and crowds and representing Israel overseas and the problems there. Obviously one of the worst moments in Israel history was the 1972 Olympics, which, will never be forgotten. And again, that was one of the reasons, what they know that sports and politics is powerful, and there's no bigger platform than the Olympic Games. And also it's interesting in terms of politics that, Israel has to compete through Europe, right? Israel is part of the Europe
Yes.
Federation. When Israel was formed, it was actually part of the Asian Federation. And something that people don't know is that not only would like Israel football team play matches against Iran, they would go to Tehran and play football matches there. Yep. And so they went to the Asian Games and they won. And basically, as things were sort of escalating against Israel in the 70s with terrorism and whatnot, the Asian teams were like, we don't want to play against Israel, get out. It's interesting that for qualifying for the 1958 World Cup, Israel basically qualified for the World Cup without ever playing a match, because everyone it was drawn to play against boycotted and refused to play against Israel. So FIFA said, okay, well, we can't have you at the World Cup without actually ever going onto the football field. So they said, we're going to do like a second chance for some European countries. I don't remember who it was, but the first European country they drew out of the hat to play Israel also refused to play Israel. But the second team, Wales said, okay.
Wales.
And so Israel didn't make it. But Israel did make it to the 1970 World Cup in Mexico, and that was through the Asian Federation. Okay. And the interesting thing was that they beat Australia to get out of there. But anyhow, in the 1980s, before Israel was in Europe, and FIFA didn't know what to do with Australia and what to do with Israel. So the two teams played against each other a number of times, qualifying for, I think, the 1982, 86, and 1990 World Cups. But the irony of this, of course, is that Palestine has a team, and Palestine is in the Asian Federation, and that's fine. But the thing is, so this being in Europe is also for the Olympics, right? And so if Israel is qualifying for any sport at the Olympics, right, the way they do it is it's like through the regions. So it'll be like South America gets like 4 spots, and Oceania gets 2 spots, and Europe gets like 6 spots, right? And so by Israel's in Europe, it has to compete against like the Netherlands and Germany and Spain and Italy and Romania or Slovakia and all these like difficult countries. Whereas if it was in Asia, it might be against Thailand, Vietnam, not as competitive, right? And so that is also another factor that, if Israel was in Asia, could it qualify again for another World Cup? Possibly. And so this is another way in which like geopolitics sort of adversely impacts Israel's sporting performances.
Wow. It's amazing, huh? It's going everywhere. How do you maintain a non-political focus, Abby? Because we are talking about political things, issues. And how do you maintain this non-political focus when, as we were talking, politics is everywhere, but especially today is also going into sports. It's kind of a difficult issue, or task.
Not really. And the thing is though, because this is our lane, this is where we stay, we don't have to do anything else. So like this is what the fans or our community know about and expect. So let me give you an example. Earlier in the year, Israel was at a fencing tournament and they won gold. So they were on the top of the podium, and the Swiss team, I think, won silver. And when it came for the ceremony in the Hatikva, so like the Israelis and the team that came third were like facing 90 degrees, right to the left, let's say, to look at the flags, whereas the Swiss team just stayed like facing forward, right? And so what did the media do? And this is also another crazy thing that like in the world we live in, social media, clickbait, like it doesn't matter what it is, where it's happening, everything immediately can just become a story from over like instantly from like the furthest corner of the world. So anyhow, the media picked this up and it's like controversy at fencing tournament because Swiss team doesn't turn for a tikva, right? So that's what they're focusing on. So again, like I didn't have to do that. I said, wow, congratulations to our fencing team who won a gold medal at this tournament, right? So this is what we were focused on, the on-field sporting accomplishment. We don't have to get there, right? The mainstream media might have to go there to get clickbait or whatever because they may think that, well, their community or their followers aren't interested in fencing or aren't interested in taekwondo or aren't interested in swimming unless it's the Olympics, let's say, or something else like that. But we're saying like, no, like I said, we don't care where it is, who it is, what it is. This is what we're going to keep doing. And so that's what the our community responds to.
Good, good. While you were talking, I was remembering one of your stories about the Israeli ski teams, and many people do not know that they are from Hungary, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that story because it's amazing? Hungary people went to Israel and they went to and they formed the Israeli ski teams. Any chance to listen something about that one?
Yeah. So as we touched on before, like with winter sports here, it's very like low profile. And again, like this isn't just in Israel, like except for Europe and North America. Most countries around the world don't care as much for the winter sports, and that's why the Winter Olympics is significantly smaller. Like you might have 230 delegations at the Summer Olympics, and I don't know what it is at the Winter Olympics, but maybe only 100 and something, if that. Anyhow, so what's the issues in Israel? Like you said, a lack of resources, either snow or ice. And the fact is also that they don't compete so often with high visibility, right? And like I said, like people will be interested here in like following Real Madrid or Barcelona or the New York Yankees. But if you say like, oh, we had an Israeli skier today, they're not going to care. So anyhow, one of the things, like I touched on before, that Jewish athletes can represent Israel. So these people living in Hungary, the Solos family, who are basically like, we love skiing, we're Jewish, why don't we represent Israel? So, that's basically how it happened. And the Winter Olympics teams for Israel have a legacy of that, either taking athletes who are expats from the Soviet Union, America, or Europe, right, where the athletes are. But, this isn't a new thing, right? This is common, for every country now, right? If there's like someone in judo, you can only have like a certain amount of athletes per country per division, right? So if I'm in Japan and I'm in like 50 kilo and there's two people better than me, I'm never going to represent Japan in judo. Whereas Estonia can say to me like, we don't have anyone in judo, come to Estonia and represent us, right? So what you're finding more and more is that athletes from different countries are representing different countries because it's like, business is business, right? It's like there's also like no reason why if I'm working as my job, I couldn't move to France and start working there. Like that's not stopping me. So an athlete thinks the same way, right? They're like, if I can't represent my country or this country internationally, I'll go find a new country to do. So yeah, that's how it works in the winter sports.
Wow. Well, time is flying, and let me go to one of our also key ideas. Sports I think, how do we see sports as a bridge in this turbulent world? And I think that sports is one of the few areas where unity, we can share pride, and there's a human connection that can overpass global polarization that we have now. And I think that follow Team Israel serves as this cultural bridge. Why do you think sports can unite people in ways politics, culture, or let me go and say religion sometimes cannot?
Because like we might have nothing in common, like different ages, different genders, different languages, different political views, different all those things you touched on, different religious views, da 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 da. But we both like football, or we both like Real Madrid, or we both like Manchester United. So suddenly we've got something that is something that will really connect us, right? Because also the thing is that, you know, the relationship that a person has with their sports team is very close, right? They really feel
Yes.
something special about that. And therefore, by extension, if you support the same team as me, then we share that together. And so the love that I have for my team also cascades into sort of an affection for you. And even if you support a different team, then it's sort of like a different relationship. Like, okay, we like the sport together, and we're sort of rivals, just like as our teams are rivals. And you know, the thing is, that's why, you know, people love sport. That's why they go to the games, even when their team breaks their heart and like,
Yes.
you know, makes them so sad and disappointed, because everyone hopes that, you know, today's going to be different. Next year's going to be different. Next season's going to be different. Even when we're losing and it's 1-0 down, you know, we're waiting, praying, hoping for an equalizer. You know, could it happen? Because the thing is, those are the best games, the ones you remember the most, when it's like the late comeback, the exciting comeback, the drama, you know, like if it goes like to a penalty shootout, right? Let's say the last World Cup in Qatar was decided by penalties, right? France, Argentina, after an amazing game. So, right, everyone knows what the deal is, right? We're either going to be the best day of my life or the worst day of my life, right? It can't, like, there's
Yes.
no, you know, this is what we've signed up for, and I'm prepared for it to be the best day. For me to for that to be a possibility, I also have to accept that it could be the worst day. And so people love that. You know, it's like a drug, you know, that feeling where the nerves, you don't know, and you know, you're not sure, but you're hoping. And this is what like sport does, you know, unlike anything else, right? There's nothing else like when you see
Nope.
people before a penalty shootout.
Wow.
That's the impact it has on them, and no one knows. And like I said, like you're not sure whether to be confident or to be scared, you know, and you just, like I said, you have to be prepared to accept failure and losing in order for to winning to be a possibility. And so that's how it is with fans. It doesn't matter what the sport, all the time, every season. That's what we sign up for.
Nice. David, and what is your long-term dream for follow Team Israel over the next, let's say, 4, 5 years?
That, you know, I got the ability to share amazing stories, more amazing stories. Just keep doing it, keep inspiring people. You know, if someone came to me and said, listen, I'm representing Israel now because I was inspired by something I saw on your page, you know, that would be amazing. And you know, like just on Sunday, early this, like a few days ago, I posted about a young girl, 16-year-old softballer, who's going to be making Aliyah and representing Israel in softball. And her dad told me that like her grandparents were just over the moon to see it. Like you can't explain the pride. Just keep doing that. You know, keep sharing, keep inspiring. You know, in a world where there's like a lot of bad people. Like you can never have enough heroes. So it's exciting for to these people, and also I've been privileged to meet a lot of the great Israeli athletes.
Great. David, your work shows us the identity is not only protected, it's really celebrated. So this, for me, this is Israel. This is Jewish life. This is resilience. Thank you very much for sharing your mission, your passion, really good passion there, and your stories here with our audience in here on One Coffee with Kavanah. And to everyone listening, watching this episode, let's support these athletes. Share these stories. And you need to tell me where they can find you before we click up.
Yes. So it's on Facebook and Instagram. So it's follow Team Israel, the word, either on Facebook or Instagram. So it's pretty easy to find there. And if they ever want to get in touch, they've ever got stories about themselves, friends or family that they'd like us to share, please just let me know. Would love to post about it in them and let the world know about their stories. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you very much. And to all our viewers, until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and we will have another chapter of One Coffee with Kavanah. I have enjoyed this wonderful minutes. Thank you very much, David. See you all in our next Coffee with Kavanah. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Roberto.